Alrighty, let's start today off with GBP USD. Now, mind you that this evening we will have a high impact news on USD pairs. Hence, I picked two pairs with USD and another pair that's quite volatile that's been kind of consolidating in one area. Okay, but you'll see what I mean. Now, starting with GBP USD. I've given this pair, I believe, since last week. And you can see that I've also marked the same zones because it's been doing sideways, right? Sideways between these two zones. So it will keep going sideways, meaning up, down, up, down, up, down in these two zones unless or until one of the zones break. So if it is going to continue in a downtrend, then it will break this lower or our buy zone here. But if it breaks above, then potentially it might do a bit of an uptrend or a quick reversal because it has to break this low for it to drop down. Okay, but if it breaks up above, then it might test a higher area over here and also another area up here. Okay, current price, or let me explain why I've marked these zones. Okay, engulfing sell meets an engulfing sell. Then engulfing buy meets another engulfing buy and another engulfing buy. Now, when I mean by engulfing, right? You guys ask me after I've marked the zones, what happens? What needs to be done in the second engulfing to call it an engulfing meets engulfing? So, like I said in my last webinar, I've been repeating this so many times. Focus on the closing, okay? Closing of the candle. If it closes within the zone and creates an engulfing buy, then you have an engulfing buy meets engulfing buy. If a candle closes within the zone and makes an engulfing sell, then you have an engulfing sell meets an engulfing sell. Okay? Easy as that. Current prices over here, what can GBP USD do? Now, I'm not going to screenshot this. Okay? But let me just use arrows. So, if this is the current price, right? Since, as you can see, it's been kind of consolidating over here. Not much movement. It's just in the void. So, I think it'll wait for the US session because usually when you have high impact news, the price won't move much until US session and when the news happens. Okay, so I think GBP USD will wait for that, but that's just me thinking. Okay, in my opinion and observations throughout multiple months and a lot of news. For GBP USD, it needs that high impact news to either spike up into this zone, either respects it or breaks it, no one knows, or drop down below into this zone, and then we can monitor if it respects it or breaks it. Okay, so current price is over here. If it decides to shoot, if it decides to just spike up into our sell zone and respects it, meaning H4, still closed within this zone, then potentially you can find an entry in either M5 or M15 within the key levels for a sell back down. But if it decides to shoot up and break this zone, meaning the closing of the candle happens, above this zone, then potentially it might want to test a higher area, okay, a higher zone. After breaking, price can either just continue shooting up or retrace back into the key level like this and use the key level for a better buy up. Okay, vice versa. If it decides to drop down into our buy zone and respects that, then potentially we can catch a buy back up. But if it decides to break down below, then it might want to test a lower area. Okay, like this. Okay, so monitor M5 or M15. That's when you will find that's where you will find your entries. What do you monitor for? Engulfing meets engulfing, engulfing fail meets engulfing, or your ABCs. Okay, that's for GBP USD. Let me just screenshot that for saves. Now we move on to USD JPY. This is our second pair of USD JPY. Okay, and since you can see I picked a GU and UJ, the same crossing of USD pairs, but different. Okay, so if GBP USD will fly, USD will drop because there is an indirect correlation between the two. Okay, so now we have also, although it has an indirect correlation, that is based on USD pair. You still have to take in consideration of GBP and JPY pairs, but because there will be a high impact news on the USD pairs, there's a higher chance that the weight will be on those pairs. Hence, I say it's an indirect correlation. So if GU flies, then UJ might drop. Okay, vice versa. If GU drops, then UJ might fly. That's just based purely on USD. Now, we have UJ, our sell zone up here. Why did I mark it as a sell zone? Oops. We have an engulfing sell over here that was very strong. Why do I say strong? Because this candle from this zone dropped a total just from 1H4 450 pips, and it continued to drop all the way to 680 pips. Okay, so I say the sellers over here are quite strong. Now, if we look back into our present, right, you can see that over here, price came back, created an engulfing sell. Price came back, tapped the key level again, and did it create an engulfing sell? Not really, right? We have a break over here, but either way, the sellers over here are quite strong. Okay, sellers over here quite strong because it was able to maintain this or UJ way below this price level. Okay, then we have our buy zone over here. An engulfing sell that failed here, right? We see, oops, what is happening to my iPad? Okay, it broke in this candle because this candle closed above this zone, right? And in the process of breaking, it also created an engulfing buy. So you already have your EF, EG buy. Price came back, created this engulfing buy, but is it strong enough? No, because it took so many candles to create an engulfing buy. Okay, but it's still an engulfing buy, just not strong. Either way, after that, price came back, tapped the key level, poked, and flew. After that, it just stayed above this zone. Okay, so you have your sell zone and your buy zone. Current price is in the middle. So, again, what can it do? I just have to zoom back a little because the zones are quite far apart. Okay, UJ is also quite volatile because JPY itself, right? JPY pairs are quite volatile. They move, they give very big movements. So we have a zone here and a zone here, and the zone itself is already 250 pips. It has a 250 pips distance from each other. Okay, so if you are able to catch either a buy here or a drop or a sell from here, then that would be 250 pips if it continues in one direction. Same thing if it continues in a buy direction and you were able to catch a buy here, that's already 250 pips. All right, but I'm not saying hold for 250 pips. Don't be greedy, okay? Take profits when you can. And if it hits your daily target, take everything, okay? Now, if it decides to climb up into our sell zone and respects it, then potentially we can catch a sell back down. But if it breaks above, then it might want to test a higher area. Oops. What is happening? My iPad's a bit glitchy. Okay, vice versa. If it decides to drop down into our sells or our buy zone, and respects it, then potentially it might want to bounce back up. And last but not least, like this. Okay? Now, where do you place your SLs? You know already where to find your entries, which is in M5 or M15. Then your SLs, after you enter, since it's a currency pair, set 40 pips from your entry. Okay, so if you are able to find an M5 setup in between the key levels after you enter, after the setup has formed, of course, you press enter. Then from that price level of your entry, you count 40 pips, and that will be your SL. Okay? Now, screenshot that. And now, last but not least, GJ. Like I told you, I do love GJ, but I do have quite a love-hate relationship with GJ, because if you get it right, you are right for a big amount of pips. But if you get it wrong, it's very quick. Okay? It's not as painful, but it does sting. Current price is here. We have a sell zone up here and a buy zone down here. The distance between the zones is around 180 or 160 pips, only from the key levels. Okay, now I've marked the sell zone because engulfing buy meets an engulfing sell. Then we have our buy zone that is quite fresh, okay, which is an engulfing sell that failed. Price came back, tapped the key level just right on top of it, and flew. Okay, so from this fly, it gave 340 pips. Hence, this zone, the buyers are also quite strong. Now, you can see for the past few days, and you can see it reflecting in the H4s, it has been consolidating just in this area. And I think I also gave GJ yesterday, but it barely moved. Okay, so when it barely moves, it kind of needs a high impact news, a red news, something with high volume to either push it all the way up or push it all the way down. Okay, and since we do have a high impact news today, I thought why not give it a go, right? Because if it decides to just spike up or drop down, potentially we can catch an entry. Okay, potentially. Current price is over here. You can see the lines. If it decides to spike up into our sell zone and respects it, then potentially we can catch a sell down. But if it decides to break above, then it might want to test a higher area. Vice versa, if it decides to drop down all the way to the buy zone and respects that, then potentially we can catch a buy back up. But if it breaks below, then it might want to test a lower area. Okay, that's it for the 3 pairs. Please trade smart, trade wisely. If you are not comfortable with trading around the news, simply just monitor. Try to feel the market. Enjoy looking at the spikes, the volume flowing in, okay? Because you have to enjoy those processes for you to be comfortable enough. And once you get to a certain level of comfortability or comfortableness, then not comfortability or comfortableness, those are not words. If you get to a certain, and when you get to a certain level of comfort, that's the word, then you can start trying entering or trading during the news. Okay? Because you will enjoy, either win or lose, you will enjoy the process in trading. Okay, that's it from me. I'm going to get back to replying to your messages. I'm almost up to date since my Telegram and Instagram have been glitching, but I will get to you now and I'll talk to you later. Bye!